If you sell prints online as a photographer, there's something you need to understand that a lot of photographers completely overlook: the tax side of selling physical products. Because once you move from just delivering digital images to selling prints, a few additional tax considerations come into play. Things like sales tax, how that income is categorized, and how to track the expenses related to those prints. So in this video, I want to walk you through a few important tax considerations photographers should know when selling prints online, so you can avoid surprises later. If we haven't met yet, hey, I'm Heather. I'm a wedding and senior photographer, and I also teach photographers how to organize and understand their numbers so tax season feels a lot less overwhelming. Because most photographers start their business focused on creativity, which makes sense. But once money starts to come in, understanding the financial side of your business becomes really important too. And selling prints is a great example of where photography and business start to overlap a little more. Now, the first thing to be aware of when selling prints online is sales tax. In many places, physical products like prints are considered taxable goods, which means you may be required to collect sales tax when a customer purchases them. This can depend on your state, where your customer is located, and the platform you're using to sell prints. For example, some gallery platforms or print labs may automatically collect and remit sales tax, while others require you to handle that yourself. So if you're starting to sell prints regularly, it's worth checking how your platform handles this so you understand what responsibilities fall on you as the business owner. In addition, it's also important to know what your state has for rules when it comes to sales tax so that you're charging and collecting it correctly. Now, the next thing to think about is how you track the income from your print sales. If you're selling prints through an online gallery, that income is still considered business income and needs to be reported along with the rest of your photography income. So when you're reviewing your finances for the year, make sure you're including things like client session payments, digital image sales, and print sales from galleries or online stores. Sometimes photographers forget about this because print platforms deposit smaller amounts throughout the year, but it's still part of your overall revenue. And another important piece when selling prints is something called cost of goods sold. This simply refers to the cost it takes for you to produce the product you're selling. For photographers, this might include the cost of prints from your lab, album production, packaging materials if you ship prints, or other fulfillment costs. Tracking these expenses is important because they help offset the income you make from selling those products. If you sell prints through an online platform or gallery system, there may also be processing fees or platform fees associated with those sales. For example, payment processing fees, commission taken by the platform, fulfillment or service fees. These are all considered business expenses, which means they can typically be categorized and deducted just like other business costs. Now, before we keep going, I want to mention that this video is brought to you by my free guide called 15 Business Tax Category Breakdowns. One of the things photographers struggle with most when they start selling things like prints, albums, or digital products is figuring out how to categorize those expenses and income correctly. Inside the guide, I break down 15 common business tax categories photographers use, along with examples of the types of purchases that typically fall into each one. So if you've ever found yourself staring at a transaction wondering, wait, where does this actually go? This guide will help make that much clearer. You can download it for free using the link in the description below. Now, the final thing I recommend if you're selling prints regularly is keeping your sales records organized throughout the year. That means keeping track of print income, the cost of those prints, platform fees, and any other expenses tied to those sales. When those numbers are organized ahead of time, tax season becomes much simpler because everything is already documented. The good news is that selling prints doesn't have to make your taxes complicated. It just means you want to be intentional about tracking a few extra pieces of information. When your numbers are organized, selling prints becomes what it should be, an additional revenue stream for your photography business, not an accounting headache. If you're a photographer who sells prints, I'd love to know in the comments, do you currently sell prints through online galleries or do you handle print orders manually? And if you want more tips on organizing your finances and understanding the tax side of running a photography business, make sure you subscribe, because the more clarity you have around your numbers, the more confidently you can grow your business. Thanks so much for joining me, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Bye, guys.